11:58. Councilman Brown, is there a second? Councilman Schubsta. Questions or discussion? Councilman Brown.
Yeah, just a quick few comments here. That what I've learned tonight is that no matter what application that they submit, they still can develop there. But per the recommendation letters of Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, Upper Milford, Lower Mac, in accordance to our Southwestern Lehigh Comp Plan, I will not be supporting the amendment tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman
Barrett? So, Mr. Brown, is your suggestion, you're saying, since you know that I refer to it as application 2.
Yes, correct.
You're saying essentially you'd like to leave it that way?
Yes. Again, the reason that there's a few reasons that my mind has kind of changed on the original.
Yeah.
One is, Mr. Puba, you articulated very well that we can do this, that there can add the 4 homes no matter what. That's something I've learned tonight. I didn't know that previously. I didn't know that you can still. And one of the other reasons I've learned that, I shouldn't say I learned it tonight, was through the Upper Milford and Lower Macungie letters. And again, in accordance to our Southwest Lehigh Comp Plan that we work for, and that's good for 10 years, that's why I'm not supporting the amendment.
Yeah.
I think it shows that we have a good partnership when it comes to the Southwest Lehigh Comp Plan. You know, this is where the municipalities can chime in. If Lower Mac's building more warehouses, we can send a letter to Lower Mac saying, hey, we don't want more truck traffic, and those kind of situations. So this is where I think a situation where as we work together with some other municipalities, and especially with the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission. So again, it just seems to me though, no matter what, with special exceptions like Mr. Dinkelacre said earlier, they can still do the townhomes. But I guess for me, I'd rather have 4 single development homes if they do that way, because it's on public record that they were going to go with the 4 single homes. So that's why the change from the previous vote that was taken.
Yeah, no, I ask it really. I mean, my concerns started to echo the same thing. Like I mentioned earlier, I'd sat in the Gen Ad meeting when we first proposed this. My gut reaction was, no, I don't want to change that. I like open space. It's more preferable. Then the idea of that you're really making open space more available, which is a positive to me, and also that the actual green space increases. So I have to say I'm quite a bit torn. I mean, I hear both elements to it.
Absolutely. It is.
I mean, again, and I've been listening to the residents, exactly what you say. It's something that I think is quite important. My decision has not really been made right now, and I don't know that that tabling something is really going to change anything here. It really just comes down to the zoning of all of that. I don't want this to sound like a snide comment, but I'm sure this same exact conversation happened where most of the residents here are when Arch Street was developed. I mean, it is a quite dense space, and I'm sure that on DeLong Avenue, someone came with the same comment or the same comment from someone that lives on Pennsylvania Avenue. So you understand how my vote goes here. I'm trying to balance all of that of things that happen right now versus the things that happen over the course of time. But I think that even if we don't change this, the same results that I heard here end up happening past our abilities to control it. I do have some concerns about traffic. It was one of the first things that I brought up to the developer when we sat here in this meeting. But then the question always gets reframed back to, well, that's not the power that we currently have at this very moment. So I don't know. There's a lot to think about here. I don't know if other council members think that tabling it in this circumstance will make a true difference because of what we are voting on.
I personally don't think so.
So,
anybody else have any comments? Councilman Anders.
I do. I'm a bit torn with this plan. I mean, I like to see the open space there. I'd like to see the green space in that. But after listening to some of the residents out there, I also noticed that they don't seem to care too much about if there's a walkway around it or not. Maybe I'm wrong, but from what I heard, that's not an issue to them, and they're the ones that live there. We have walking space around Community Park that's just down the road. You know, we're torn here because more than likely we got, you know, you have the two plans there. From what I just heard, that tabling doesn't seem to be an option. I was kind of considering that, to be honest. But I do not. I would rather see the, if it came down to the single-family homes versus the in the one portion, and for that reason, I'm going to go in that direction.
Anybody else? If not, I have my comments. I'm looking at these two maps, and first of all, I had the benefit of sitting through General Administration Committee meetings and having this presented to us earlier. Originally, these two green spaces that separate Arch Street and the incoming development, that originally was going to be at the back of the property. They moved it to the front of the property so that there would be still green space separating the Arch Street property. There's still going to be 49 properties versus 50 properties. It's not going to affect traffic at all. Either development is going to be equal in traffic. The reason I'm going to support this is there is more green space and less impervious surface. And to me, that addresses some of the people's issues with regards to water runoff. You're going to have less impervious space with the new plan. And I'm going to support it for those reasons. It's a very emotional issue for people that live there. I understand that. I also understand that these issues are going to be addressed in zoning and not through council, most of them. And for that reason, I'm supporting it because I would like to see more green space. And to me, 50 units versus 49 and less impervious space makes sense to support. I just see that as making sense to me. Does anybody else have a comment? Councilman DeFrank?
So on this new green space, for lack of a better term, that they're creating here, even though it's not zoned that way, there's absolutely positively ways we can make sure that that happens, right? Between either us or the zoning or somebody.
I'm sorry, say it.
The new green space that they're adding here, okay? Even though they're not rezoning it, all right, I understand why they're not rezoning it. We can absolutely positively make sure that that happens, right?
So
Either
you
through
can,
us
I mean,
or somebody else.
Yes, so I mean, one of the things that we can do is we can make sure that when they go through the planning commission process, that we express that. And if it doesn't get done there, remember, Borough Council, no matter what happens here, no matter what happens at a zoning hearing board, at the end of the day, when they do a new development, it ends up in your lap anyway to make the final approval. So no matter what is voted on here or decided at a zoning hearing board, you have say at the finale of a process for development. So so you have that ultimate say in the end of a development.
Yeah.
So it would be smart of them to just deal with that early rather than going through a process and then council saying no, this is what we want.
I have one more comment too. With regards to the trail, Arch Street is not the only neighborhood that is going to be able to have access to that trail. You have a whole other section of town on the east side of that, 12th Street, DeLong, and further over, that will have access to that. You have Rodale, that trail gets heavily used. I'm on the other side of town. We have the South Mountain Preserve and the, what do we call our trail? The Gateway Trail. That is heavily used, and I know it because I run on it. And then the trail that we put in the Emmaus Community Park is heavily used. And I just think that's just a benefit that the borough will use, maybe not your neighborhood, but the borough itself. It's just another attraction where people can come and go to a walking trail. And like I said, there's Community Park. We'll have this. We'll have Rodale. We have the trail over on the by the Stryer section. So I just want to say it's not just Arch Street that would use it. It'd be the other side of on the east side also.
Yeah. Chris, I just want to go back to your question. Shane is right that as the Borough Council, you have the final say. But keep in mind that in the end, the developer's plan must comply with the ordinances. You may see some variations between the plan, or in the plan, as it goes through the process. I don't know enough about how this plan was drawn out in terms of the location of these stormwater management facilities. Is there a possibility that when you get into all the engineering, there are some changes in that? In the end, the question is compliance with the laws and the ordinances that affect land development. So I'm not saying that they would change or they can change, but within the parameters of the law, the developer can do the development. We have two concepts here, and I don't know the degree to which yet they are fully engineered, and fully exactly what they can look like when all the engineering documents come in.
I also wanted to make one additional comment that I'll be abstaining from this vote, which I've done for any other land development. As an abundance of caution, I do own a real estate office, and I want to avoid any perceived conflict of interest, even though there is zero conflict of interest in me voting, but I will be abstaining.
So you're abstaining even though there's no conflict of interest?
Absent a conflict of interest, Wes, you should vote.
You should vote.
Absent a conflict of interest. I think,
There's
being
no
a realtor
conflict.
is not enough of a conflict.
I have abstained from every vote that has to do with
Right.
any development that has.
I can't make you vote, but
I'm saying I think that it is important to not, out of the perception of what people think that council members and realtors in general do. So that is where my stance is, and that's why I'm putting that on record.
Anybody else have any comments? Hearing none, it's a roll call vote. Councilman Brown?
No.
Councilman Shubsta?
Aye.
Councilman Anders?
No.
Councilwoman Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilman Dufresne?
Aye.
Councilman Barrett?
I'm abstaining.
Councilman Ladenburg? Aye. There are 4 ayes,
it passes.
2 noes,
No, it's.
and 1 abstention.
I have Shubsta, Gilbert, Lavenberg voting yes.
And Dufresne.
I have.
And Dufresne.
And
That's
Frank.
4. So
That's
it's 4
4.
yeses, 2 noes,
4
and
to
1
2.
abstention.
4-2-1. So that passes.
I'd like to thank everyone for their input. Please make sure you show up for the zoning committee meetings. That's where all the important decisions are going to be made.
I just don't like the fact the way this is and has nothing, butts right up against everything. You know what I mean?
We have ordinance 1163, an ordinance of the Borough of Emmaus, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, and amending chapter 1, subsection 341 and 343 of the Code of Ordinances, amending the number of members and residency requirements for the Emmaus Arts Commission. This is the second reading. Whose committee is this from? GA?
I believe so.
You have any comments on this, Wes?
Sorry. Sorry, I was
Came from
catching
CRD.
up on my notes.
Came from CRD.
Oh, CRD. Chris, do you have any notes or comments on this?
No, I think all we're doing is looking to allow people who work in Emmaus to be a part of it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that we're really changing here in the number of people in the committee, correct?
Right, added to.
Okay.
That's it.
Any questions or comments? All right, so roll call vote. Councilman Brown?
Wait.
What?
I don't have any motion.
Oh, is there a motion to approve 1163? Councilman Brown? Councilman Dufresne? Good call. Roll call vote. Councilman Brown?
Aye.
Councilman Shubsta?
Aye.
Councilman Anders?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilman Dufresne?
Aye.
Councilman Barrett?
Aye.
Councilman Ladenburg? Aye. There are 7 ayes. Under new business, we have a first reading of ordinance 1164. That would be from Safety Committee, correct?
Yeah, it's just a removal of a handicap parking sign
All right.
at 656 Ridge Street.
It's an ordinance of the Borough of Emmaus, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, amending Chapter 15, subsection 602.2.a of the Emmaus Borough Code, removing a residential handicap parking sign on the public street located in front of 656 Ridge within the Borough of Emmaus. Is there a motion to approve 1164?
So moved.
Councilwoman Gilbert, seconded by Councilman Brown. Roll call vote. Councilman Brown?
Aye.
Councilman Schubsta.
Aye.
Councilman Anders.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gilbert.
Aye.
Councilman Dufresne.
Aye.
Councilman Barrett.
Aye.
Councilman Layberg. Aye. There are 7 ayes. Second reading will be in a month. Second reading second meeting in November.
November 20th. Probably.
All right. Unfinished business part 2. We have none. Items not on the agenda. Anybody have anything to bring forward? Mayor's report.
No, I have nothing, Mr. President.
Thank you. Committee reports. Public Works. Chairman Brown.
Nothing for official action for tonight. Mr. Pepe, I do have one request. Can you just get a status on the ongoing projects that we have? Can you just have that typed up and then sent out?
Yeah, I apologize.
No, that's okay.
I
I
had
know
a
you're
budget that I had to submit today.
Yeah, it's just a
I
little,
forgot.
just a small little detail. You mean this?
But
big
I
thing?
will get that out. I apologize because you did
don't.
ask. You
no,
did
that's
ask
okay.
for that.
I just wanted to just remind you, it's not a big deal. But no official action for tonight, so I'll report progress. November 13th here at Council Chambers is our next Public Works meeting.
Thank you. Health, Sanitation, and Codes. Chairman Schubsta.
Yep, I just have one question for you, Mr. Pepe. In here we have the Code Masters document. And are we looking to vote on that?
You don't
Accept
have
it?
to. I think just send it to committee.
I think that's
Review
what
it
we're
at
gonna
committee
do.
for now.
Okay, yeah, I mean, they're basically outlining that they're not going to change their fee schedule for 2018, so we'll send that to committee then.
Is that just for informational purposes then?
Yeah, I mean, next year when you do all the other reappointments, you would be deciding to retain them.
Okay.
So we'll just send it to committee to review.
Yeah,
for
we'll
now.
review their progress. Okay. And nothing else for official action, so our next meeting is scheduled for October 19th at 4:15 Council Chambers.
Thank you.
Report progress.
Parks and Recreation Committee. Chairman Anders.
Yes, I have one item for official action, and that is in regards to the community park baseball field. Many of you may have noticed that the infield grass has been worn. It's been used quite a bit this year, as in other years since we have put grass in. Speaking with Mr. Daishala, who is our Public Works Director, it needs time to be ready for the spring season for both, the users of it, the high school, the EYA, and other teams. So the decision was discussed about closing down the field by September 30th for the infield to have the grass maintained each year, and it gives it a chance to grow in the fall when grass is growing well and be ready for March.
Yeah, so the problem is because high school baseball starts earlier than the snow melts, there really is no time in the spring to prep that field. And our challenge is everybody, and we have to talk about this in deeper detail with council, about the number of people that use that field, because that is the only 90-foot field in the borough. So everyone uses that field, it seems, and that field is getting torn to shreds. High school baseball does a great job maintaining it when they're playing. After their season's over, everybody else starts taking over. EYA, Reynolds, the adult leagues. You name it, we've got it. So that field can only handle so much. Baseball's playing on it through the end of October this year, and with the weather that we've had, they're still playing. That field is not going to get fixed this year. There's no way, because by the time we get on there and can schedule it, planting grass is not going to be, it's going to be out of the question. So hoping that field is ready by next March is going to be a challenge for us. So closing this thing on September 30th, telling all these leagues that, look, you can't use them, and also looking at putting restrictions on that field as to who can rent it and for what in the future, I think is important. We're not advocating that you ban people from the field. People should be able to use the field. We've talked about it 100 times about it being public. But having all of these leagues on it and doing what they're doing and the amount of money that was invested to have that infield the way that it was designed, it is literally, it does not look good. I invite you to go down there and look at it. You'll know exactly what we're saying. But we need to be able to do something. So I think this is our resolution to try to address it at the end of the season.
I think one of the issues that we discussed too is you can't just go and spike your own bases, and if you're not going to use the 90-foot bases, you can't just do certain things like that. So there are things that we'll have as far as rules. When somebody's going to use the field, they got to follow the rules. So we're going to come up with a list of rules.
So for that, I'll put the motion to have an official close date of September 30th each year for the community park large field
For maintenance.
for maintenance.
There's a motion on the floor by Councilman Anders, seconded by Councilman Barrett. Any questions or discussion? Councilman
So
DeFrame?
by closing on September 30th, I'm only worried about EYA teams right now. That's not going to affect any of their EYA seasons?
The only fall team that played there was their majors team this past year, and they were done at that date or the first week in October. So it might be a little. It's right around that date. This was the first year they had a majors team play in the fall, so I don't know if that will be a continued program or not.
Well, if they're aware of it for next year, they can schedule around
and
it.
I think they just have to deal with it. Otherwise, we need to wipe our hands of we have to put almost $2,000 into fixing this field this year.
I'd suggest not renting it out to outside organizations as often. If it's just going to cost us more than we're bringing in income and not penalize, so to speak, EYA teams who remain its residents.
Agreed, but EYA is not. They're as guilty as everybody else.
Understood, but if you have 50 people on it rather than 100, it's going to be less.
Right, agreed, and I absolutely agreed, and that's something that the committee
This will be
talked
discussed in
about.
the committee.
Yeah.
Committee did discuss like who can and can't use them.
My only problem is from knowing baseball, EYA does not set the schedule for the whole league. If the schedule runs until October 7th, then EYA is just going to say, I don't have a field, I can't play.
Well, you can play away.
Well, I think if they know on October 17th of the year before, I think they can probably put that into the scheduling for next year.
Okay.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes.
And with that, we meet next month at November 7th. Progress.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Chairwoman Gilbert.
Thank you. I have 2 items for official action this evening. The first is we received a proposal from Connell Green Consulting Incorporated to conduct environmental testing on our fire training grounds at the vicinity of the fire tower, the concrete fire tower that we have. What they would need to do is do testing of the concrete fire tower structure and the surrounding soil prior to demolition. We're cleaning up our fire training grounds, and that's one of the projects that we have in mind to do. So the committee is in fact recommending that we hire Connell Green Consulting Incorporated for $805 to do the surrounding soil tests for pre-demolition for the fire training tower.
So motion by Councilwoman Gilbert. Is there a second? Councilman Brown, questions? I have a question. Oh, go ahead, Councilman Anders.
Is that the big tall building, or is
The
that
white
one
one.
of the small
The
ones?
old
It's
tower.
The old tower.
Oh, the smaller one. I was going to ask the same question
Yeah,
because
because the one I thought was relatively new.
yeah, that's the
It's-
one that county helped pay for,
It's the old
right?
tower
Right.
with the big crack right down there.
Okay.
Right down the front of the building.
Just making sure. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes.
The other item that we have is the contract for 2018 for Sanctuary at Houseville. Shane, there's no changes or anything to this that I could see. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Same price?
Same price, $50 per cat and $110 per dog. And it's still $15, I believe, if a resident takes an animal in.
Okay.
Okay, so I will place that in the form of a motion that we enter into the contract with Sanctuary at Houseville.
There's a motion by Councilwoman Gilbert, seconded by Councilman Brown. Questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes.
That was the only 2 items that I had for official business. But if you do look at the committee notes, we did have several items of discussion that we'll keep on our agenda and we will work on moving forward. Our next meeting is scheduled for November 1st. I'll report progress.
Thank you. General Administration Committee, Chairman Barrett.
Sure. So we met on October 12th for about 3.5 hours, yet we have nothing for official action today.
That's a first.
I know, exactly. So, but lots of topics that really do need long discussion. Nothing, though, for further action. Our next meeting will be October 26th at 9 a.m. Progress.
Thank you. Budget and Finance Committee is myself. Would someone like to make a motion to pass Resolution 2017-30, which is the bill list. Councilman Shipsta, seconded by Councilwoman Gilbert. Any questions on the bill list? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes. Our next meeting is October 26th here in council chambers at 3:15.
No, that meeting
was
is
canceled.
canceled.
Canceled?
24th.
Oh, well,
Budget workshop.
budget workshop is the 24th, a Tuesday, starting at 4 o'clock. That
Plan.
is open to the public or not?
Absolutely. Plan for 4 hours.
So if you want a 4-hour enjoyment, just come to our budget workshop. Progress. Community Relations Planning and Development Committee, Chairman Dufresne.
Nothing for official action here tonight. Our next meeting is November 9th at 4 p.m. Progress.
Thank you. You have a couple meeting minutes from a couple of the organizations in Emmaus. Yeah, Personal Appeals Part 2. Anybody have an appeal? Please approach the podium. Hearing none. Borough Manager's Report.
Significant revenue and expense items for the first half of October are in your iPads. Otherwise, if you look at your iPads, they were updated about 3:30 today. You have an item in there that says Budget Workshop, October 24th. If you see the orange binder on the mayor's desk, that is what is in your iPads. So good luck, have fun. It was, well, you have a lot to read. So,
And you have 8 days to do it.
well, as I always tell you, the first document I would read if I was you is that 152-page monologue that explains the other 680 pages of budget binder. So your first draft,
So that's 288 pages?
something like that. Your budget draft is also there. You look good in a lot of areas. You have a lot of discussions to be made in other areas. I also gave you a CD with, if you want to get in there and try to manipulate the spreadsheets and make your own numbers work, feel free. Chris,
Manipulate's not a good word.
that's pointed to you. But the calculations you see is best math I can do. So I'll report progress if you don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Under President's Business, we'll be going into executive session to discuss contract issues
And legal.
and legal, which will be a while. There will be no expected votes after the meeting, other than to adjourn, correct?
Correct.
With that being said, we will recess at 8:51. If the press has any questions, you can come up and address them now. So it's 4, 2 against.